I'm not interested in running a business if its sole purpose is to check these boxes and to uphold a persona anymore. That would leave a life that I'm not interested in living anymore. What if I could teach and share these principles that are working for me? And this could be as much about helping people grow personally and professionally and financially.
Hey everyone, super excited for you to listen to this episode. Just a couple of things to make all of it make sense. So Jake really runs 3 brands. They're all under the umbrella of Disruptive. Disruptive Advertising is the main bread and butter moneymaker that has been for years and years, and we go into a lot of details of how that was built. But what he's working on now that is actually really cool is called Disruptive University, and it's all the lessons he learned from spending over $1 million in self-improvement, therapy, coaches, etc. when he hit sort of a rock bottom moment with his marriage and realized that he needed to make some changes. And then lastly, there's Disruptive Giving, which we don't go into much in this episode, but it is very cool and a big part of the mission of both of these companies. So if you want to check out what they do giving wise, make sure to do that afterwards. That said, I totally nerded out with Jake all throughout this episode, and meeting him in person, I really got the feeling like this guy's the real deal. He walks the walk. He really focuses on these principles and lives them in his own life. So keep that in mind as you're watching and enjoy.
I grew up in Spanish Fork, Utah, a mighty Don, and then graduated all the way to live in Provo and have my headquarters here in Pleasant Grove.
You're just really moving up in the world.
Just slowly moving north in my life.
And any like entrepreneurial mentors growing up that affected you or inspired you to start a business?
I was very entrepreneurial. And so I would say, as a result, I think my dad actually sought out more stability. So it skipped a generation and then found its way to me.
All right.
And so I think it's in the blood.
Nice.
And my grandpa on my mom's side was a big PR and marketing person as well. So I think I'm a hybrid of those two.
Love it. And what was your paternal grandfather? What did he do?
So what didn't he do?
Okay.
I mean, the guy was an inventor, removable cleats for golf shoes to put on your regular shoes, real estate, construction, farmer.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Hence the stability from your dad.
Yeah. Yep. Yeah.
So take us back to, you were working for Adobe when you had the idea for disruptive advertising, right?
Yep.
What was happening at that time? How did it all start?
Yeah. The hot place to work at when I graduated was Omniture.
Okay.
And I was excited to kick that off. It was right in the middle of like the financial crisis. And so I was excited that not only did I find something after school, but it was exactly where I wanted to be. And the skill set that I developed there, I was a more extrovert marketing and sales guy by nature that got a more technical degree in information systems.
Okay.
And the first few years of my career, I just helped some of the largest companies in the world integrate their marketing data with their customer data so that we could see what was actually translating into revenue and profitability for them. And so that was like the hard skill set that I developed. And then I'm like, okay, if I'm working with American Express or John Deere or Home Depot or whatever, and like if these big companies don't even know how to do this stuff, like what's the small and medium-sized business doing?
Yeah.
And so the first name of the business, I just thought I'd be a freelancing analytics consultant was my big entrepreneurial idea.
Nice.
Because I'm like, oh, I see the need and that's not being met for the small, medium-sized business. If you get good data, you can make better marketing decisions and grow your business. So I called the business Found ROI and started that. But it was almost like an off-brand of Where's Waldo, because everyone's like, "Oh, what's Foundroy? Like, what's your business?" You know? I was like, "Okay, I didn't nail that one." But time and time again, I would freelance for free for the company I worked at in college or other ones, and it would work really well. I'm like, "Here's exactly how you should spend your money." But inevitably, they would say, "That's cool. We don't have the bandwidth or even know how to implement what you're telling us. Can you just do that for us?" And so that's how I got into the marketing scene through data was, okay, now that the data is telling us what to do, they didn't know how to implement it. And so I just started learning how to implement those things. And that's how it went from an analytics consulting to a performance marketing agency that differentiates by getting good data as the foundation.
So this is 2008. What data can you actually get, and how has that evolved over the years?
Surprisingly, way more than most businesses still get today. Right. And so at the time, this was, you're tracking everything with, I don't want to get like overly technical, but you can literally track every click, what it's leading to, cookie them, get them into your system. And you can automate a lot with machine learning, automation, those types of things.
Yeah.
And so even though AI is kind of like the buzzword right now, I feel like what most people understand AI to be today, we were doing from a digital marketing standpoint, like over, 10, 15 years ago.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But these are, I mean, Facebook ads didn't even launch till 2013, 2011, right? So
I forget when those ones did. My kind of specialty was more on the Google side. So
Okay,
Google
that's fine.
AdWords at the time. Yeah.
Okay. So you start getting these freelancing contracts. What are you charging? How does that snowball? And when do you quit your job?
Yeah. So my first client I charged for free. The second client I charged for free. And it was more like, these are people that I love and already have a relationship with, and I just want to help them win with their business. And both of those turned into great contracts for me. One of them turned into one of my first clients was who I worked at in college. They became a couple grand a month to a few grand a month to a $30,000 a month contract.
Wow.
And then one of my good friends and contacts that I'd worked with at Adobe had moved on, and I just helped him out for free to help him be successful in his new job. And then it ended up turning into a contract with Guitar Center as one of my first clients as well. And so it was fun to just see, I'm not doing this to try and I just want to help. I just want to see these people win because they're people I care about.
Yeah.
And then it just turned into contracts. And so I officially quit my full-time job that also turned into a client because he had a good experience with me as well in September of 2013. And I had built my book of business to about $30,000 a month of revenue. And my wife and I both grew up in very conservative households. And so we'd actually paid off all of our debt, no mortgage, no payment on anything, had a good savings, a book of business. And I said, okay, if this is our time, this is the time.
Yeah. Did you have kids at the time?
3.
All right.
Yeah, we've got 4 now.
But as far as risky goes, it wasn't super high up there as far as
debt, I had a year or two to a buffer at that point.
Nice.
Which felt reasonable for our situation.
Yeah. So once you went full time, were you pounding the pavement trying to get more deals, or was it really growing organically at that point?
Both. Because I was personally involved with all of our clients and I did great work, it was not uncommon to get referrals. And then I started going to local networking events, just hustling. I'm an extroverted guy anyway. And so just started doing those things and found myself doing marketing for a lot of these small businesses weren't really ideal for exactly what I did, but I thought it would be. And so I found myself working in a lot of situations that was working very well, and a bunch of others where I'm like, we're just trying to get any client we can at this point, but kind of finding which ones actually worked for us and which ones didn't.
Got it.
Yeah.
And just as an ads marketing agency guy, I'm really interested in the deliverable you were giving to these people. So what was the secret sauce of you're looking at, okay, click to page view to leads and then conversion, and you're really drilling into each one of those and optimizing the whole process? And who did you discover who was the ideal client during that time?
Yeah.
What were they doing in revenue, and what was the pitch to them? Hey, we can take you from 100 grand to 500, or did that not matter as much as the mindset of the business?
Yeah. At the time, I was so specialized in the service that I provided that it was paid search and some retargeting.
Okay.
Is all I was doing.
Okay.
Okay. And so I could go in and within 20 minutes, I did this manually for a while and then built a software that would do it for me. I could conduct an audit to determine what percentage of their advertising dollars in Google were actually driving revenue for them or not.
Wow.
And over the first number of years of the business, I had formally audited over 2,000 accounts, and on average, 76% of their budget was producing nothing for them. And that doesn't mean the other 24% was profitable. Okay. So I could pretty quickly show them what you're spending is not efficient and it's not working very well for you.
So it's like a high roast for Google Ads.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So that's what we would do, and that's what would close the deal pretty well.
Nice.
That audit only worked if they had sufficient data for me to look at it.
Fair.
Okay. And so the sweet spot kind of became, hey, minimum, you got to be spending 10 grand a month on your ads for us to be able to give you any sort of confidence in what we can do. And our sweet spot was probably in that $10,000 to $50,000 a month of spend. And then we had a few large enterprise contracts that came from my personal network, but that was probably more of our sweet spot client of, hey, on Google, you should be spending at least $10,000 to $50,000 a month, and then we'd be a good fit for you.
Yeah.
Versus like, we're trying it for the first time. We're a newer business. Let's see how this goes. And those were the ones where we kept running into issues.
Yeah. The churn's super high.
Yeah.
Super emotional. Yeah.
Yeah. Sky high expectations, bottom level budgets.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. But what a pitch. Like I was just thinking about this last week. Like pitching and making sales with data is so much easier than like emotionally trying to push somebody into a decision. It's just like, hey, 75% of your dollars are literally getting flushed down the drain here.
Yeah.
So what would you pitch? Like, you're like, there's a very clear problem. The fix is we're gonna optimize your pages and make sure that the keywords are optimized, etc. Or was there anything else in there that
Yeah.
was?
Yeah. Simplistically, it was 1-to-1-to-1. Are you targeting the right keywords that are driving you revenue?
Yeah.
Is your ad copy matching appropriately to what they're looking for? And then are you giving them a consistent experience on the website
Okay.
so that throughput is like butter, like it's
Yeah.
just easy. It makes sense. And I always think of online marketing like herding cats at Walmart. You just got to make it so obvious
Yeah.
what they've got to do that they don't have to think.
Yeah.
Right. And so that was typically what we were looking for. And paid search is so bottom of the funnel, someone looking to make a buying decision on average.
Yeah.
That's where we would clean it up and get that. So the expansion was, hey, I'm just optimizing your account,
Yeah.
but I don't have good pages to point people to on your website.
Yeah.
So that's when we introduced Unbounce is the tool that we would use for,
Nice.
and still use actually for some clients. But hey, we need to build pages that will convert the traffic that we're sending, because even if we make the right optimizations and you've got a bad website experience, it's not going to work.
Yeah. So you're picking up some awesome contracts. You quit your job. Who was your first hire, and how did that go?
Yeah. This one feels a little cliche. It was like my best buddy from high school.
Nice. And did you bring him on as like a partner, or he was just paid?
I just
as
paid
a-
him.
Nice.
Yeah. I did eventually have a partner that didn't work out relatively quickly.
Uh-huh.
But yeah, it was just my buddy from high school. I said he wasn't loving his job. He was still wrapping up school. And I'm like, dude, I have more work than I can do. You want to just come and help me out and I
Nice.
can pay you? And he's like, yeah, let's give it a shot.
So 2013 to 2020 is kind of like the golden age of disruptive advertising, right?
Yeah.
In terms of like you working full time in that business and like growing it to what it is today.
Yeah.
When you look back at those 7 years, what sticks out as like the 2 to 3 things that really moved the needle for you and for clients?
As far as the business is concerned, being able to move beyond founder-based sales is what
Yeah.
opened up a lot of growth. Okay. And having something, an offer and a funnel that was simple enough that I could hand it off to other people and they could close the deals and we could grow.
Nice.
So I feel like that's what unlocked a lot of our growth. Getting more clear about who we wanted to work with. Do we want to work with these proof of concept businesses? Do we want to work with more established small to medium size businesses? I would say those are the things that made the biggest difference. And then, like for me personally, it was the first few years. I'm just like seeing if this works, like going on this entrepreneurial adventure.
Mm-hmm.
And I think you and I think most entrepreneurs can relate, where all of a sudden you start identifying with your business,
Yeah.
right? And it's hard to even disassociate like the business and who I am anymore. And so the areas of life where I was struggling quite a bit, I started masking more and more with like, I'll just kind of hide behind the business facade. And it's not that big of a deal because my business is doing well. So that means I'm not the problem, because how could I be the problem if the business is doing well? And that's where things started to feel hard because I wasn't living as authentically. I was struggling in my marriage to the point where we were, weren't sure if it was going to work out. And was 50 pounds heavier, way more emotionally volatile, feeling kind of spiritually disconnected from anything bigger than myself, and was just really wrapped up in like the success of the business and my identity with that. And that kind of, and it was funny because it was like the same time as we were crossing the $10 million a year in revenue mark.
Yeah.
So here we are at like Sundance, and I pay for everyone to get tuxes and gowns and celebrate and have this great time. And it was an awesome, so like I loved it. I loved all of that. But then on the inside, there was quite a bit that I was struggling with at that point and wondering if it was even worth it, you know?
Yeah. That led you to spend like $1 million on self-improvement, right?
When you say it like that, it sounds so ridiculous.
Hey, it's
Yeah,
the exact path I would have gone down myself in that same situation, so I get it.
yeah. Yeah, between therapy, coaching, consulting, some addiction recovery support type stuff, conferences, just all the things. I'm like, okay, let's figure this out. A lot of that, I've always been like a voracious learner.
Mhm.
So I love just consuming content, books, all that kind of stuff. But the tipping point was in a marriage counseling session.
Mm.
He had us read the book Leadership and Self-Deception. I finished it. I'm like, okay, I might be like 20% of the problem here. Because
Mm.
I was going to be a good sport and like once she sees she's the problem, then we can move on with our lives type thing, you know?
Yeah.
And we read that book. We had another session, and he asked me how the business was doing, and I'm like, we just hit 10 million, and we're awesome, and this and that and that. And he's like, well, how does your business partner feel about that? I'm like, what do you mean I don't have a business partner?
Mm.
Then he like looks at my wife, and then he looks back at me, and he's like, oh, it's interesting that you see it that way. And I'm like, yeah, dude, she's not my business partner. And like, it's like those moments that you never forget. I'm like, oh, I don't see her like my partner.
Mm.
And so it's this was like the moment where the business shifted for me personally, coming back to your question, which
Yeah.
was what would it be like to be married to someone for 10 years, have 3 children with him, support his ambitions, and then he doesn't see and treat you like a partner,
Mm.
right? And I was like consumed with that because I'm like, that would suck. And that's her and that's me. And that's what's happening here. And I feel like that's when I was finally like honest with myself about what was going on,
Mm.
you know? And so we left, and I asked her, I'm like, do you feel like I see you like a partner? And she's like, no. And I'm like, okay, forget like 20% of the problem. Like, I'm the villain here.
Yeah.
Like, it's time to change some things. And that's when I went on that path of like personal development, growth, all of those types of things. But I will tell you, one of the funny things about that experience is I was meeting with a therapist, and I spent the first 6 months of therapy convincing him why, yeah, I kinda struggle with these things, but it's not as bad as other people you meet with, right?
Yeah. Classic.
And it's like but I was still proud, like, I'm proud of that younger self for taking the first step.
Sure.
And I look back and I just laugh and would just give him a big hug, you
Mhm.
know? And,
Such a good message to
yeah,
anyone that's in that moment right now.
yeah. Let's just take a step, and and hopefully you'll look back and just giggle at yourself.
Yeah.
Because it's like, I've got 4 kids, and when I watch them learn how to ride their bike and they fall over, do I, like, judge them? And, it's like, no, I
Yeah.
just love them. And I think sometimes as adults, we think we're supposed to get it all right the first time we try things versus just, no, just give it a shot. Like, just start moving in the direction, you
Yeah.
know? And, what I found after spending a lot of time, energy, and money on this stuff was that no one had the answers for me. I was looking for everyone else to tell me what to do.
Yeah.
And when you look for someone else to tell you what to do, you're avoiding doing what you feel like on the inside you should be doing,
Yeah.
right? And so I just feel like that is ultimately what it led me to. And the framework, as I learned these things, there's a framework that I learned. Like the only thing that consistently worked for me was practicing awareness, honesty, and responsibility. If something's coming up, if there's a feeling, if there's resistance, if there's whatever, it's like I'm going to sit and be present in like what's going on here. I'm going to be honest with myself about what's actually happening, and then I'm going to take responsibility if I want to do something different. And what I became aware of with my wife was, uh, oh, I'm not treating her like a partner. That's the awareness phase. Those moments always feel exposing,
Mm.
like naked in front of a camera
Yeah.
or an audience, right? Like all of a sudden there's nothing to hide
It's
behind.
where you want to yell because
Mhm.
or fight back or resist.
Or hide,
Yeah.
but there's nowhere to hide in those
Mm.
moments. The honesty moment was we always do things because there's a payoff.
Mm.
And if you'd say, well, why? So if I'm asking myself the question, Jake, why do you like feeling frustrated in your marriage? I'd say like, Keen, what the hell are you talking about? I don't like feeling frustrated in my marriage. Well, then I'd say, then why do you keep doing it?
Mm.
Why do you keep living in a way that causes you to feel frustrated in your relationship? What's the payoff? And my payoff was, well, because then I get to say she's the problem and I don't have to change anything on my end. That's the payoff.
Mm.
So it actually, like, and I don't know how much of this was conscious, but it's like once I saw the truth, the
Yeah.
truth was, oh, I'm living this way because then I don't have to take responsibility. Once you see the truth, it kind of sets you free. Because then I said, well, do I actually believe that? Well, no, I don't believe that. I can see that I actually need to take some act. Like, it doesn't serve me to show up in my relationship this way.
Yeah.
And then once you're honest with yourself, the next step's always clear.
Mm.
It's always clear. Like, that's the responsibility part. And so, as I figured these things out with a lot of time and money, I started developing them into courses that I taught internally at my business that has evolved into Disruptive University from that time. But that was like where it all began.
The biggest nugget that I just took from what you said was everything we do is because there's a payoff at the end. And even if that payoff is sick or twisted, we do it for that benefit of ourselves or a benefit of maybe our subconscious or something like that. How does somebody in that moment where they're feeling exposed, they've done the awareness piece that you mentioned, is it just a like, hey, become more mindful, understand your feelings, kind of sit in those for a while? What do you teach students in the university about that moment of discovering what your twisted payoff may be or why you're doing a certain behavior and you can't stop?
Well, let me give you a silly example,
Sure.
and then I'll give you a more heartfelt one on that one. So another moment of awareness for me, and this is just a silly example I like to share. I have my three oldest kids are daughters.
Mhm.
It wasn't until my fourth child that is a son with short hair that I'm doing bath time. And my wife notices me doing conditioner and then shampoo. Okay. And she's like, what are you doing? And I'm like, I'm bathing your son. You're welcome. Right. And she's like, no, no, no. You do shampoo and then you condition. Otherwise, you'll just wash out the conditioner and it has no purpose. And I'm like, a 37-year-old grown ass man learning this with my fourth kid.
Yeah.
Okay. So in that moment, I
Wait.
feel kind of like an idiot.
Were you conditioning your own hair?
No, dude, I've always used like just shampoo or a
Okay.
2 or 3 in 1.
All right.
So it's like,
You're like 12 in 1. Like,
yeah, I'm like, whatever's the most efficient way to get in and out of that shower.
Okay.
And you're the first person that's asked me that. So I'm like, of course I feel silly. I'm 37. I don't know how to wash hair correctly.
Yeah.
And so there's this moment of like, oh, well, now I can beat myself up, but how does that even help me? It's like, now I know. Now I know for moving forward. I know the truth. I can just move forward and I can do it correctly moving forward. Okay. So that's like a simple example of awareness, honesty, and responsibility. People that love you will bring these things up to you.
Yeah.
Because they love you and they want to see you like, there's a better way. With the things that we struggle with the most, so we'll use my marriage example, okay, is why am I showing up this way? What's the payoff? It's, well, because then I don't have to take any responsibility and changing's hard. If I keep showing up this way, I know what I'll keep getting. And so subconsciously, we do the things that we do because it actually creates, it's our comfort zone. Even though we claim to not like it, we wouldn't keep doing it if we did.
Yeah.
And so what I try to tell people about is, number one, you're a 3-part being. You have a mind, you have a body, and you have a spirit or soul or whatever you want to call that, okay? And your body and your mind will generally seek homeostasis and your physical and psychological safety. And so doing something new comes with a lot more risk.
Sure.
So they're going to have a natural hesitancy to do that, okay? But what happens is if you just let your mind and body govern you all the time, you're not living life anymore and you're not experiencing new things, okay? And so in these moments, I just say, well, what if you stop judging what's happening as good or bad? What are you learning from this? From the positive things in your relationships, from the negative things in your, what if neither of them are good or bad? What are they teaching you? And then what serves you moving forward? And if you can kind of let go of the guilt and shame of it and just observe it for what it is, just discern it, see how I'm learning and growing from the positive and the negative, and then what feels like what would best serve me moving forward. It actually kind of takes the pressure off because the answers are usually pretty simple. I actually do believe my wife is my partner. I don't think we're the same. I think we're both unique, but I absolutely don't believe that I'm better or worse than her. And that's how I want to show up. That's what serves me.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, what does that look like? Well, okay, like let's figure out practically what does that mean in our relationship. So
Sure.
that's kind of how I approach that stuff.
Yeah, I've thought about this. Sometimes I tie it into like going to a new restaurant versus going to what you've always gone to.
Mhm.
You know what you're gonna get, and that's the safe option. But the new restaurant may be your new favorite.
You never know.
Yeah, so it's kind of like that with relationships or whatever you're looking for
Yep.
next in your life, right?
And I think everyone likes a certain level of certainty in their life. And I think as an entrepreneur, I kind of crave a little more risk and uncertainty than my wife does, for example.
Yeah.
So I don't think it's a static target for anybody.
Mm,
And for some person, that might be, hey, 10% risk in my life and 90% stability is what feels great to me. Or I might be 50, 70% risk and 30% stability is more
yeah.
like is feels better for me. But I think it's just like know thyself
Mm,
and what keeps you on the adventure of life and enjoying the journey.
yeah.
And that's what attracts people to me is they know they don't come to me for validation and to feel comfortable. That's not
Yeah.
what people come to me for. They come to me because they're like, I've been stuck for a while and I need someone that can kind of like nudge and push me a little outside of my comfort zone. And for
Yeah.
whatever reason, that's what I'm good at.
So we kind of skipped the messy middle a little bit with like, going to this conference and this therapist and this,
Yeah.
that whole process. And to me, big picture, it seems like external versus internal kind of compass, right?
Mhm.
Like I'm either following my own intuition or I'm searching, like you said, from these external sources to figure out what's next or right for me or everyone, depending on how we see it. When did that switch and how long did you spend in the external, like, let's read another book, let's go to another conference phase?
I think like anything in life, it's a progression. And so I think it is actually, and I'll only speak for myself. I look back and say, I needed to expose myself to a lot of information so that I could discern what was actually working for me and what wasn't working for me.
Sure.
And so I would say there was a level of progression with that. And when it came to the business, when I love business the most is I have a clear vision of what we're doing, why we're doing it, and where I want to go with it.
Yeah.
Okay. And when I've got that, like I've got a lot of energy, drive, passion behind it. And those things change over time. But without those things, it's like I'm not, my life energy is not behind it.
Sure.
On the personal side, some of the things that I learned, and I think a lot of us work with this, is I grew up with a dad that's actually pretty the inverse of me. He likes a he is introverted. He worked at the same job for 38 years at a credit union. Very stable and was often was a local and church leader my whole life, looked up to by many people.
Yeah.
Okay. And so I looked at him and I'm like, that's who I'm supposed to be
Yeah.
because everyone loves this guy and looks up to
Mhm.
him. It's interesting because fill in the blank for whoever that is for you, right? You think you're supposed to be like the people that you're looking around, or that they expect you to be like that person as
Yeah.
well. And I love, honor, and respect my dad, but I'm not him. I'm
Yeah.
entrepreneurial. I'm loud. I'm extroverted. I like to break things and try new things and do those types of things. And so most of my life, I felt like I was doing it wrong.
Mm.
I'm like, why am I not content being more a different way?
Yeah.
you know, and but I wasn't aware that that's what was happening.
Yeah, it's so interesting because it's just like the restaurant thing again. It's like I've been to
Mhm.
this restaurant my whole life. Like all restaurants are supposed to be like this, but then you go to it doesn't even have to be the Michelin star, just
Yeah.
something different, and you're like, oh, maybe actually I want my life to look a little bit more like this. Even just to I think add some color to this, which I think really applies. I had a friend who he spent like 20, 25 years in federal prison in California, and the crime that he committed it because everyone in his life died at like 20 years old or 30 years old. And he just thought, I'm going to die young. Like, what's the point? So, a
Wow.
very extreme example of your same thing. Like, you've got this, stand up guy that's your dad. If you're surrounded by these other examples, we just think we're going to grow into that.
Mhm. Yeah, it's an interesting balance, isn't it?
Yeah.
And I feel like we're born into this world without a lot of expectations. Eventually, a lot of expectations kind of layer on top of you.
Yeah.
You live. I feel like your 20s and 30s are a lot about living out those expectations,
Mm.
and then you kind of start to hit this midlife crisis moment where you're like, I checked the boxes the best I could for what I thought I was supposed to be, what
Mm.
I thought I was supposed to do. But then once you start checking those boxes or kind of start to see the finish line or the summit, all of a sudden you're confronted with, but is this who I am? Is this what I want? And I actually think this is a beautiful part of the human experience.
Mm.
And I actually think that life is designed that way so that when you step more fully into your authenticity, you now have the experience of knowing what is and is not aligned with who you are and what you want to create and build in this world. And how would you know
Yeah.
unless you tried a bunch of stuff, you know?
Yeah.
I tried being like my dad. I tried running my business the way that a book told me I should. I tried having the marriage and doing it the way that I thought I was supposed to until it didn't work for me. And then it's like, well, what does work for me? And what works for me is very different than my parents' relationship or the way that other people run their businesses or do those types of things as well. And developing the courage that it's okay to do it the way that I would do it. Because my life experience and the way that I see the world, no one else sees the world the way that I do.
Yeah.
And if no one else sees it the way that I do, how could I expect to do it any other way? And so if you see the world in a unique way, you got to start serving the world in a unique way as well.
A lot of people forget that we continue to develop as adults, and a lot of it has to do with becoming less black and white and more comfortable with the gray,
Yeah.
more comfortable with what's right for me is not right for you.
Yeah.
To go back to the question about switching from that, hey, here's external examples, this is what I'm trying to become, to that internal one, was that around 40 for you? Like you said, your 20s and 30s are kind
Yeah.
of living out those expectations. When was the switch, and was it a book or a moment or was it throwing away all the books and the courses and stuff?
Well, there's a couple. I just turned 40,
Nice.
right? And I feel like the last couple of years had been a little bit more of that midlife crisis type thing where I'm
Yeah.
now re-evaluating everything
Mhm.
in my life, and there's a part of that that is brutal
Mm.
and painful and equally beautiful, amazing, liberating, all of those types of things as well.
Mm.
But I told you that critical moment with my wife and going through
Yeah.
counseling. What I realized within the first few months after that was I'm not interested in running a business if its sole purpose is to check these boxes and to uphold a persona anymore.
Wow.
Okay. I'm not interested. Like I'm actually not interested. That would leave a life that I'm not interested in living anymore. So I said, well, what would be interesting to me? And I'm like, what if I could teach and share these principles that are working for me with the people in the business? And this could be as much about helping people grow personally and professionally and financially while they work
Mm.
at Disruptive. And I'm like, I would love to run a business like that. That would be a lot of fun for me. And what are our values? What are the clients that would give us energy to work on? So it started leading and guiding a lot of those decisions that I would make. Um, Even to COVID, even though we'd grown to 20, 25 million a year in revenue, we're doing fantastic. COVID happened, and life's a good teacher, man, because all of a sudden you think, oh, I've made all these changes and now I'm in a good spot. Well, it's like, dude, this game doesn't end.
Yeah.
Like it is the endless game of life, the endless game of business. And I was when COVID happened, I found myself feeling, oh man, I wish that got worse. Why would I want that to get worse? This is the awareness thing. Like
Yeah.
that is an interesting feeling that's coming up right now.
Yeah.
Oh, well, because I haven't made the hard decisions about some of the clients that we're servicing that I still don't feel aligned with servicing. And I've been kicking that can down the road because we've been growing. I haven't had to make the decision. And damn it, I was hoping COVID would just make that decision for me.
Yeah.
But now I actually have to make that decision and own the consequences, you know? And so I feel like life keeps giving us those opportunities. It's like a layer and then another layer and then another layer to like learn and grow. So from that time, and this is like well past the, going from a freelance to like a 20, $25 million business.
Yeah.
We went from 650 clients at our peak and reduced it to 180.
Wow.
Maintained revenue while we did that, but we didn't know that's what would happen. to drop to a third as many clients. We did it tactfully and over time and
Yeah.
whatever, but it's like, we want to work with the clients we want to work with.
Yeah.
And it's like hard to wake up in the morning and say, I'm so excited to run a business that we get to work on clients we don't like working with,
Yeah.
that we don't even know if it's really helping them that much.
Mhm.
Like, no one wakes up and thinks, I love my life when that's what's going on. So that's just another example of like a pivot that needed to be made.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So how did you maintain revenue with that pivot?
Well, when you focus on fewer clients, you grow those clients more. And so our average, we tend to track things in like monthly recurring revenue for our clients.
Yeah.
And we went almost 3 to 4x our monthly average revenue that we were getting per client. And that's what offset having a third as many as that we used to.
So those were performance deals.
Performance deals, or just starting to close larger deals. And when we'd close a larger deal, remove a few more small ones and kind of
Got it.
just slowly sift through and recreate the book of
Yeah.
business.
Yeah, it's beautiful. That realization of you saying, I'm not interested in running a business for this purpose anymore. That's a mic drop. Like, so many founders need to hear that, because it may be you recreate the business in the image that you want it to be for that period of time, right?
Uh-huh.
And it's totally possible, but you're getting a completely different thing out of it, even though on the outside it may look the same,
Yeah.
right?
And dude, those moments, it's like, it's hard to even communicate with words how scary those decisions feel,
Mm.
because it will impact employees, it will impact clients, it will impact revenue. You don't know how it's going to work out. So the risk of pivoting your business to something that feels more authentic and energy giving is hella risky.
Mm.
But then the other question I would ask is, what's the risk if you don't?
Yeah.
And when you start to think about it that way, you're like, oh, that actually sounds riskier. Because,
Yeah.
well, the risk if I don't is I like my business less and less and less, therefore my life less and less and less,
Yeah.
to the point where you fire sell it, it falls apart anyway, because you're not bringing your best energy and creativity to the business.
Yeah.
And so it's like, it's scary, it's risky, but the alternative of not making these changes along the way, I just think is way riskier.
Oh, it's so true. It's people would, I tell the story. I dropped out of BYU to start an ad agency, and everyone's like, "Oh, you're so brave." I'm like, I hated it there. I couldn't spend another day at that place.
Yeah.
It was not risky at all, especially with the, life situation I was in at that time, single and 21. But it's the same. Like, you're doing 10 million at that point. It's the same thing. There's not a risk. There's no risk in saying no to a life that you're beginning to hate.
And how cool that we have a built-in mechanism
Yeah.
that tells us when it doesn't feel on track anymore.
Yeah.
And that's the thing, is that the feelings that we avoid are like the gifts that they're telling us something.
Mm.
And when we just take the time to listen, it's like, oh, this uncomfortable thought and feeling that I keep avoiding, why does it keep coming back? Well, because it freaking loves you and it has a message to share with you.
Yeah.
And when you just listen, you're like, okay, let's go. And come what may, there's going to be ups and downs, whatever path you pick. I mean, it's life. It comes with highs and lows and all of the above,
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Did you maintain or improve profit as well when you downsized?
Depends on the year. Yeah. Some years up, some years down. But generally speaking, what's interesting is we're actually navigating another pivot as a business, because it's 2025 now, right? I feel like major pivots happen about every 3 to 5 years
Mm.
in the business.
Yeah.
So our profit did go up when we made that pivot. But usually in the transition of making the pivot, it actually reduces margin.
Got it.
Yeah. Yeah. Because I don't like making people pay the price for that.
Yeah.
And so it's like, okay, we're going to move on from these clients, but that means it impacted your performance, but I'll eat that instead of making you eat that, since it's a decision I made, for example. Yeah. But then you work through it, improves margin. And my experience with business is you have about 2 years of investment, 2 or 3 years of investment, 2 or 3 years of like harvesting, and then 2 or 3 years of investment again, and then 2 or 3 years of harvesting again. And it seems to kind of happen in those cycles.
Got it.
Yeah.
Yeah. The years of plenty and the years of
Scrappy and not making a lot of money.
yeah.
Yeah.
There you go. So I just, again, I have to ask the like ad agency questions because I look at a business like yours and I scratch my head at how an agency gets so big because they're so like service and labor intensive, especially before the age of AI. And there's, yeah, you can SOP things and yeah, you can systematize them, but there's just so much human capital that you have to caretake in an agency. So you've bootstrapped to like 20, 25 million,
Mhm.
but you've again stayed profitable that whole time. You've been taking home great checks since you started. How have you made sure that your owner pay stays where you want it to be and made sure that your employees are motivated and just kept an ad agency alive for this long?
There are times where I'm like, I have no idea how this is all worked out. Like honestly, I'm like, the fact that it works at all sometimes just feels like a miracle to me.
Yeah,
Um, but what I would say is, one of my love languages is like gift giving,
sure.
and so I've always been willing to not capitalize my benefit up front to make sure that everyone else is winning first.
Mm,
Because when they're winning, and then I get the long play on that, right? And so that's where I said it's about, when I started the age, I did not take a salary when I started the agency. Um, and so that I could invest that money in hiring people,
okay.
investing in growth, doing those types of things. I even loaned the company some money, so I had some operating capital to do that. And I feel like doing that saved me a couple of years and that's why I was so grateful to not overextend myself.
Yeah.
Because I feel like one of my competitive advantages is I don't have um, other partners outside of my wife in the
Mm,
business that I have to keep happy financially.
yeah.
And we grew up with a and like, look, we live a great lifestyle, but
Yeah.
it's like we grew up with a conservative background.
Yeah.
And so I look at all those things and I'm like, yeah, I usually have like 2 to 3 year investment cycles where I'm like, I'm giving a lot more than I'm getting.
Mm,
And then I have 2 to 3 years where I get a lot back in return. But then I usually just, I, I, I like to be as generous as I can with that. And we regularly celebrate 10-year anniversaries here. And that is not common at an ad agency.
yeah. No,
Like
not at
that's
all.
just not common. And I do option packages for my executive team, and
Okay.
I've had people come and go that I am their exit liquidity. Hey,
Mm,
thanks for helping me build it. We've increased the enterprise value of the business. I will buy your stock back, type thing. And so people, I feel like my wins are very tied to how much the people that are here are winning,
mm.
and that's how I tried to approach it. And I think that's why it's worked as well as it has.
Yeah, those, I don't know, let's say 2 years of you at the beginning loading the company money and just being able to like hire great talent and focus on things going in the right direction. Like it's just like you rolled a ball and it has kept rolling
Yeah.
in some ways, right?
Yep.
You guys have maintained a 10 plus year track record of amazing growth, worked with some awesome clients, all that type of thing. What problems do agencies get themselves into over and over again that you see in the industry that doesn't allow them to do that same thing?
I think saying yes to too many things. I think that's just a great way to burn out and
Yeah.
not do anything. I think most agencies focus on keeping their clients happy rather than growing them.
Mm,
And it is not my goal to keep my clients happy. It is my goal to help them succeed and to win and bring new ideas to the table. Um, and when we've struggled and when I see other agencies struggle the most, it's like, how do I just be great at customer service and keep you happy
yeah.
and say yes to everything you ask to the point where we're making no money, we're stressed out of our minds, and it's not driving results for you.
Yeah.
And it still ends anyway.
Yeah. It's like hey, here's your welcome gift, a bunch of cookies and brownies, and we're gonna like respond to you within 5 minutes every time. But when you look at the balance sheet every month or the
Yep.
ROI statement, it's just not there.
Yep.
Two questions. Very related to this. What is your like client from hell story or client relationship from hell that just like, the tales from the agency trenches? I'd love to hear that. And then also, um, when is a time when you've pushed back on a client and helped them kind of level up their mindset so that they could grow.
Yeah.
Because a lot of the challenges of an agency is running up against the other founder that's like bottlenecking their own growth and doesn't actually want to grow, says with their words, but with their actions, they're doing the opposite.
Yeah. Clients from hell. I will tell you, most of them have been of our own making
Of course.
because we've enabled poor behavior for a long time and blame it on the client.
Mm-hmm.
But we'll put those ones aside.
Sure.
We have had some highly abusive clients, and early on in the business, I won't say the brand and the name, but that would just call and just light in to my team members
Yeah.
and just like completely unprofessional, inappropriate, those types of things. And especially for marketers earlier in their career, they just kind of take it,
Yeah.
you know, and that's a killer. And there's been a variety of times where I've just had to say, we can't work together anymore. Or if you ever address me or my team that way, we will not do business together. Okay.
Yeah.
Now, I would say more often than not, those actually turn into our best clients. Yeah. Because it's like the first person that cared enough about them to call them on their shit.
Wow.
You know? And so that's where I just think that like in most situations, those are clients where you just got to say, this is how we work together. And we've moved away from like $1 million contracts of saying, this is what is a win for us and what works for us. And if that doesn't work for you, that's okay. We can end the relationship. If that does work for you, let's get after it and let's kill it. And in some situations, that's led to losing really large contracts. In other situations, it's led to really growing and having highly successful relationships moving forward. Yeah.
Yeah. Boundaries, man.
Yeah.
It's amazing how the respect meter goes up with the right people the minute you say something like that.
And most entrepreneurs, myself included, we want to boil the ocean. We want to go after everything. And we respect and value people that push back on us.
Yeah.
It like gives us a ground to stand on, a wall to lean up against.
Yeah.
And most people are afraid to do that. But the ones that succeed and grow the most in agency or in-house or whatever is they push back.
Yeah.
And not just to be a stick in the mud or a pain in the ass. It's they actually say, I actually have conviction around this and here's why.
Yeah.
I'm like, oh, I love working with people like that.
Yeah. Do you have an example of a client who was struggling because of, let's say, sales, operations, HR, something out of your locus of control as the agency? And how did you help them overcome that hurdle so that you could help them win?
There's some really common situations like this that come up. Number one, what do you value, revenue growth or profitability? Because they will inevitably come at odds with each other. And most say growth until the margin isn't there. And they say, but margin, but growth, but margin, but growth. And that's where I walk them through understanding you invest in growth and margin catches up. Because if you can't approach it that way, you will not grow.
Yeah.
If you want to grow 40% this year on the same marketing budget you had last year, we're not the right agency for you.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like you want to grow 40%, we probably need to be spending 40% more on marketing today before the revenue's there.
Yeah.
To get you there.
For a year.
Yeah. So that's the first thing. And they're like, well, I actually don't want to do that because you value profitability more than you realize. So what is a growth goal that we can actually agree on that fits the sweet spot for you and where you're at with your business?
Yeah.
That would be the first one that I would highlight.
Going back to vision, right?
Yeah. The second one is especially for lead generation type businesses, is their sales team sucks.
Yeah.
It's like they have a way of doing sales and the leads that we're driving don't fit quite into that. And it's like, dude, we are never going to help you hit your sales targets unless you are world-class at working the leads that we drive into your system. And if you don't do that and aren't committed to figuring that out, we're not going to be the right agency for you because we know we won't win with you.
Yeah.
Right. And then it's the same thing with e-commerce. E-commerce, the brands that say, I need to hit a specific ROAS are the brands that are losing right now. Like bad. Because it's like a drought for these businesses because they're not filling their funnel and they're just trying to squeeze and squeeze and squeeze the bottom of the funnel until there's nothing left.
Wow. And
it's like, yeah, we've hit your profitability target, but your volume is dying. And now your fixed costs, all of these other challenges.
Yeah.
And so the two things that I see e-commerce businesses needing to do more of is understanding how to effectively fill a funnel And that is a little bit more of an investment up front, but working those through into purchases. And then having loss leader products that Guitar Center was a client of mine. You think they make money on guitar picks online? It's like, they've got products that they sell to bring customers in,
Yeah.
but they're making money when you buy the amp with them or the nice guitar, or they've got these other things that now you're a customer and getting you to buy again and again and again is where you win.
Yeah.
And so e-commerce businesses that say, I've got to suck the bottom of the funnel dry and and I need to be profitable on the first sale. And I'm like, good luck, man. We're not the right agency for you.
Yeah. And when did you, like, before you had the acumen that you have today,
Yeah.
did that just, like, you brought on these clients probably without the right expectations? You weren't able to say, look, we're not the right agency for you because of sales team. You want to squeeze the bottom of the funnel, operations, whatever. How do you go about learning that if you don't know it yet? And what did you do in the early stages to kind of help out what you didn't know, if that makes sense?
I would say a natural gift I have is discernment. The hard skill I developed before starting my business was data.
Yeah.
And so I do feel like this is something that I had like a leg up or a jump start in this area. I would say most marketers don't have that, and most agencies don't have that when they're starting out or younger. And it's don't be afraid to learn through trial and error. But again, what I mentioned to you earlier is I don't like people paying the price for my mistakes.
Yeah.
And so I just always tried to be really transparent with clients when I'm like, I actually don't know if this will work, and I'm willing to test it with you. And in some situations, you don't pay me until it works, or I actually don't know. And for this to be worth it for me to give it a shot with you, you're going to need to pay me and know that it may not work for you. And so that's where it's like, yeah, and there's plenty of trial and error in all of that. But I think the more transparent you are, you're at least going to be on the same page with expectations. And if you don't close the deal because they're like, you've got to guarantee the results, like, okay, then it's just like, we can have the hard conversation now or three painful months later. I'd rather just have it now.
Yeah. That's the that's one of the goated pitches ever is, I have no idea if this is going to work. Do you want to work with me? And they're like, you're the only person that said that.
Yeah.
Let's do it.
Yeah.
I'd love to talk more about Disruptive University because you've now, I assume, spend quite a bit of your time there, as opposed to the agency. I'd love to hear kind of how you split your time, but you've taken the principles that you were teaching internally and now have like a systematized way of
Yeah.
teaching authenticity wins, which is kind of the mantra of Disruptive University, right? So tell us, what was the birth of Disruptive University and how did you decide to go that route, and how much time do you spend there versus other projects now?
So the birth of Disruptive University were those first few classes I taught after spending all the time, money, and energy with consulting, therapy, all of that type of stuff, and taking what I was learning and finding to be helpful and sharing that internally at the company.
Yeah.
And that was a long time ago. This has been going on for 8-9 years now. That slowly developed into quite a few courses that would support them in their personal, professional, and financial growth. And it was about 2 years ago where I said, how do we make this more simple and repeatable and shareable with the rest of the world?
Mm.
You know? And so that is where I put together the first 3 courses that are our flagship courses, which is Authenticity Wins. And in that course, we focus on what does it mean to be authentic? And then how do you live with vision in your life, in your relationships, and with your work? Because when you have those things dialed in, you've got a lot of life energy supporting you on the path that you're on. If you're being inauthentic and you have no vision of something that you like working on, you're basically a zombie, right?
Yeah.
And so we've got a really cool technology LMS system that we've built where people, they learn the topic, they get asked 3 questions at the end of each lesson, which is, if this is what you're aware of, what does honest look like here for you, and what does responsibility look like for you here?
Yeah.
They work through all of that as they answer the questions. That actually builds them an authenticity dashboard as they go through that.
Nice.
And so they start to understand, these are my strengths and my weaknesses. Most people try to pretend like they don't have weaknesses. And I said, your strengths are your gift to serve the world. Your weaknesses are the gift you give the world to serve you, right? Your values. When you understand the things that give you energy in life, you understand the things that you value. And when you look at the life experiences where you felt really horrible, it taught you what your values were on the inverse side of that.
Yeah.
Okay. And when you understand your strengths and weaknesses and your unique values that guide who you are and the decisions that you make, that's when you start to embrace how you see the world differently and how you serve the world differently. And when you put that together, the value that you can contribute in a unique way that no one else can, all of a sudden is way more valuable than showing up and trying to add value in a way that you think you're supposed to. And so that's how you make more money in a way that also feels great. So that's what we explore around, like, what does it mean to be authentic in those areas? And so we've got like a really fun course. That's the book that's coming out in September this year, is Authenticity Wins. That course is nailed down. Well, once you've done that for yourself and you understand what does a life of authenticity and vision look like for you, well, how do you bring that into your relationship, especially with a significant other? How do you bring that to your work? And that's what we address in the second course, which is shared vision.
Sure.
Because if you don't have a vision in your relationships and with your work, it will die, it will end. But when you have something that you're working towards together, that's when 1 + 1 does equal 3. Okay. So we explore that from a shared vision standpoint. And then the practice, which is the third one, is what the hell? I did the work. I'm authentic. I'm working on things I love, and life's still hard. And I'm like, my friend, that's the good news. It means there's another adventure to go on. There's something new to learn. There's something new to experience. And that is your mind and your body trying to protect you again. But it's put on the shoes, put on the jacket, let's go on another adventure, you know? And so that's kind of how I've built that over time. It takes about a quarter to go through each course. So people that fully graduate, you know, it's something that they can go through one at a time, or they can go through all three. And then we've got deep dives that we go into each area of life after that for people that are interested.
Very cool. And there's like facilitators, right? So you
Yeah.
meet with your group.
Yeah. Yeah. So I take 2 groups through a year personally because I love it.
Love it.
But then we've got other facilitators that take business owners, entrepreneurs, marketers, or individuals through. And it's been really fun because my wife actually takes entrepreneur spouses through the
Nice.
program. And she's built out like the music for it. She's very musical. She takes spouses through because she understands that side of it in a way that I'll never understand,
Yeah.
you know, being in that supporting role. And so it's been a lot of fun.
Wow. Tell me about the authentic marketer one, because I was looking at that assessment on the way over, and it's something I think about like every day. I'm
Yeah.
like, I look at certain people, not my place to judge them, but where I go is I'm like, how can you say these things? How can you market this way and
Yeah.
wake up and operate from that place of abundance that you're talking about, right? Does it have to do with like, I don't know, the thing that comes to mind is like fake scarcity, fake urgency, like all these sort of like gimmicky marketing things. For me, that doesn't feel authentic to me, so I don't do it. But just the fact that you had one for marketers, I was like, wow, this is some pretty niche stuff. What does
Yeah.
it include, and how is it different than the other ones?
So what I described to you in those 3 courses is more for the individual.
Sure.
There is an add-on marketer track or add-on entrepreneur track. The marketer, there's really only 2 questions you need to ask yourself as a marketer. Do you believe in yourself, and do you believe in what you're marketing? Because if you don't believe in yourself, life sucks. If you don't believe in what you're marketing, you feel like a fraud. And the longer you operate from that place, the more you will not enjoy your life.
Yeah.
It's that built-in mechanism that's saying, hey, this is not you. This is not aligned, right? And so what I train marketers on is so first off, they go through the personal one to
Okay.
understand who they are
Mm-hmm.
and what makes them unique and how to lean into that and how to trust themselves, right? Because if you don't believe in yourself, you're going to struggle to be a great marketer. And if you try to do it the way you think you're supposed to versus leaning into who you are, like that's different. But as it relates to a business, you've got to believe in what you're marketing. And I think for marketing to be successful, you need to nail 3 things. You need to understand the vision of why does this business exist beyond making money? It's okay that businesses make money, but what's the why beyond that? And if you don't connect with that, that might temporarily fill a professional need that you have, but it won't get your heart in
Wow.
it. Okay. So how do you help elevate a business to have a more clear vision? That's
Yeah.
what I teach them how to do. Okay. And you might be the one that helps remind them Why'd you start this business? What are the customer outcomes that inspire you? What are the employee outcomes that inspire you? Like, let's get back to why you do this beyond just making money, okay? The second thing is strategy. How do you translate vision and business goals into actual marketing strategy and goals? And that's where most marketers get it wrong. They don't know how to translate business goals and objectives into marketing goals and objectives. And so they start chasing things that don't align back to what the business is actually trying to accomplish. And then the third one is execution. If you've got a strong vision, a strong strategy, your ability to execute against that becomes way more simple. And if you tell me that you're connecting with why this business exists beyond making money and the outcomes that provides for their customers, you have marketing gold with that stuff. And now you can come up with an execution plan to do that. So I've taken all the secret sauce that we use as an agency to help develop vision, strategy, and execution in a marketing plan. And that's what I teach marketers how to do.
Love that. Love that. If you could go back to Jake when he's, let's say, 21, 22, just getting started with life, marriage, business, everything, what would you tell him?
What I would tell, I'd just give him a big hug and say, you have an awesome life in front of you. And anything I could tell you right now, you wouldn't even necessarily be able to comprehend.
Yeah.
So enjoy the journey and understand that there is no I'll be happy when. The utopia that you think you're going to get to doesn't exist. The way you think it does. It's the journey. And the struggles you're going to have in your marriage, in your business, and all of those things, like that's where you'll grow the most. And so like, don't be afraid of them. Just enjoy it. The highs and the lows, and just go for it.
Love it.
Yeah.
So if people want to work with you, you've got the book coming out in September, you've got Disruptive University, and there's something else coming up this April, right?
Yeah. So we have our first Authenticity Wins conference, April 24th and 25th this year. It's going to be, we have the author of Leadership and Self-Deception coming to speak at it, which is kind of like a full circle moment.
Yeah.
But it's just how to be authentic in your life, in your relationships, and with the work that you do. And we've got an individual track, a marketer track, and a business owner track in that one. It's going to be awesome. The book should be live in September. The second manuscript has been completed. And then Disruptive University. Every quarter, we start new groups of entrepreneurs, marketers, or individuals that are ready to heed the call to adventure and start living more authentically and going for the thing they've been putting off for a little while. And we've got a program that's great for that.
Love it. Thanks so much for coming on. This has been awesome.
Okay. Thanks, man.
Appreciate it. Hey everyone, thank you so much for watching. Real quick before you click off, 3 very quick things. Number 1, follow us on social media if you don't already. Whatever your favorite platform is, we're there. Check out the links below as always. Secondly, if you enjoyed this episode, leave us a review or send this episode to a friend or both. It really helps us out and it helps the businesses out that we interview. And then lastly, do not forget to check out last week's episode with Dale Majors. This guy is a serial entrepreneur, but most of all, a lifestyle and family man. And he's figured out how to fit those together in a way that I haven't seen any other entrepreneur do. It's a really interesting conversation and he's very well spoken. Not to mention that his whole journey started with flipping bike parts and that grew into $10 million a year. And I won't spoil the rest for you. Just go listen to it. Thanks for tuning in. We'll see you next week.